Hello, everybody. My name is Martha Alter Hines, and I'm with Living the One Light. All right, this video is going to be a little different from others. In this video, I'm going to kind of begin a conversation with all of you. And this is sort of part one of this conversation. And then part two of the conversation is going to be a free gathering that I'm holding on May 15th, 2024. And many of you already signed up for it, but I would love to invite any and all of you to join me live or through the recording. And actually, if you're hearing this video at any point, please continue to sign up, because what this conversation is about feels really, really important to me. It is a conversation of, on one level, coming into relationship with an Oort cloud being who has the longest known orbit of anything that astronomers have discovered in our solar system up to this point. So this being is named, I may be pronouncing this incorrectly, but LELEAKUHONUA. So it's a Hawaiian name. And this being has an orbit of over 33,000 years. So Sedna is often Sedna was the first known or discovered Oort cloud object in our solar system. And Sedna has an orbit of 11,400 years. So this being, LELEAKUHONUA, has an orbit, almost 3 times as long as Sedna. And we, in the astrology world, have begun really feeling the importance of Sedna. But Sedna is not the only known Oort cloud being. There are actually a total of at least 4 known by astronomers at this point. But Sedna is the only one who I know of that's really talked about in the astrology world at all. And even Sedna is just sort of in the beginnings of being talked about in a lot of astrology circles. So this being, LELEAKUHONUA, to me is crucial on many, many levels. Not just the level, I mean, there's certainly the level of, okay, there's this newly discovered being in our solar system. It's great to learn about it. It's great to feel into how to incorporate it into astrology. But there's so much more there. So in this video, I'm gonna just kind of, again, start that conversation, but then the real deeper dive will continue in this free gathering on May 15th. And what I've done, you can see in the link, the free link that I'm putting with this video, what I've actually created is, I guess you could consider it like a mini course on this being, because I'm going to be doing this free gathering. It's going to be a 2-hour gathering on May 15th, which will be a workshop, and which will be a time where we can all together collectively honor and be with this being and really try to listen to her. And I'll say more about that in a minute. But what I've also done is I've compiled lots and lots and lots and lots of different information and resources related to this being for you to peruse, explore, add your own, to the list. And because something that's arising for me in exploring our relationship with this being is that it feels extremely important that we consciously and carefully engage with beings of the cosmos, especially these ones that are brand new to at least Western astronomical and astrological minds. It feels really important to me that we engage with this in a way that is deeply honoring of the being itself, deeply honoring of the wisdom of all of us, and also deeply honoring of the culture and the tradition that the name is coming from. So there's all these different layers. And all of this is coming together as I'm exploring LELEAKUHONUA. And if anybody knows how to truly pronounce it, please let me know. I've tried to find the correct pronunciation and I could be completely off. So that's part of, that's, you know, one of the components that feels really important in this way of exploring these beings, is that it feels crucial that even those of us who I could, you know, okay, so I could go and research this being and put out a video where I say, here are the answers. I am now an expert. I've declared myself an expert on this being, and you know, here's the truth about it. And I would probably be wrong. So I'm not doing that, right? But also it feels really, really important that as we're exploring these beings, that we have a stance of not knowing, of probably getting it wrong, and being okay with still exploring anyway. And with recognizing if we're wrong, and if another person realizes, oh no, actually I'm a native Hawaiian speaker, and here's the real meaning and here's the real pronunciation. I mean, great. Please, 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 please. I would love that input, and I would love, hopefully some native Hawaiian speakers can be part of this conversation. So that's one component, is the not knowing, and approaching these beings with incredible humility and the reality that we just can't know who they truly are. I mean, this being is so far away from the earth. It's like really, really, really far away. And it's now approaching its closest, the time in its orbit when it comes the closest to the sun will be actually in 2078. So again, it has over a 33,000 year orbit. So it's, you know, really relatively extremely close to the sun compared to when it is what, like 17,000 years ago, it would have been really far away. But even now, even though it's close to the sun, it's still, you know, much farther than Pluto is, for example. So okay, so just to drop into a few things, a few layers about this being, and again, we'll explore this together more in that free gathering on May 15th. And just in the course itself. I mean, again, it's totally free, and I would love for it to be a place where we can continue this dialogue in the forum of the course itself. So please sign up, please share any resources you find, please engage or ask questions or bring up your thoughts, your intuition about it. So there's so much here. And again, I'll go into it much more on May 15th, but just to start with a few components of it. Okay. So here's one thing about LELEAKUHONUA that I think is just astounding. Let me start with the things I find really significant. Okay. Number one, like I said, it is the being in our solar system that has the longest known orbit from what I can find. I could be wrong. I could definitely be wrong, but from what I find, you know, searching the astronomy sites and looking into it, it is, I don't know of anyone that has a longer orbit than this one. And again, it's 3 times ish longer than Sedna's, and Sedna's is incredibly long. Pluto's orbit is what, 248-ish years, and Sedna's is 11,400, but this one is more than 33,000 years. Okay, so that's number one. Number two, Sedna and LELEAKUHONUA are both approaching their closest point to the sun, so they're perihelion. And Sedna's is going to be Sedna will be closest to Sedna will reach its closest point to the sun in 2076, and this one will reach its closest point to the sun in 2078. I'm pretty sure I have that right. It could have that. Anyway, one is 2076, the other, one is 2076 and one is 2078. So 2 years apart. And so people talk about Sedna as being a being, you know, that goes so far away from the sun and from the earth and from the regular part of our solar system, that it's in a sense, getting somewhat close to other star systems. So our sun is a star, right? So every star has a solar system in a sense. And so the thinking about Sedna is that when it is at its farthest point from the sun, so the opposite of where it is right now, it is in a sense almost touching, or almost not quite touching, but like almost visiting the systems around other suns. Well, if that's the case, certainly with this being, that would be the case even more, right? And the thinking with Sedna is that she goes so far away that when she's now on her way back and coming so close to the sun, relatively for her, in a sense, you could think of it that she's bringing back to us the wisdom, the knowledge, the energetics. I think of it more like on a vibrational level, that she's vibrationally coming back from having traveled so far away. So the same would be true at the same time, 2 years apart. They're the closest they get, right? 2 years apart. The same would certainly be true for this being as well. Okay, and then here, but this is really fascinating. So Sedna, the story of Sedna, if you're not familiar with it, Heather Ensworth has beautiful videos on it, and there's one video where she goes into the actual story of Sedna in a really beautiful way that I love. So I highly recommend connecting with that. But on the basic level, the Sedna story is that she is a being of the Arctic North. And long story, very condensed, very short, is that she gets taken by, in a sense, a shaman being away from her home. And again, I'm really condensing this so much, but it gets betrayed by her father. Her father, there's the story of her being in the boat with her father who came to rescue her, and then the father throws her overboard, and Sedna tries to grab onto the side of the boat, and the father hits her hands with the oars, and Sedna's fingers break off, and then in another version of the story, her arms break off, and her fingers and her arms fall into the sea, and she falls into the sea, but her fingers and her arms become sea creatures. And as she falls down into the ocean and in a sense dies, she actually transforms into the goddess of the ocean, the deep ocean, right? So the idea is that she transforms into, when she finally lets go of the known and of what she thinks is safe and what she thinks is the structure that's going to really save her, the letting go is key to actually transform and become who she's really actually meant to be. Okay, so that's the Sedna story. Then I don't really want to say in contrast, but then next to that is the story or the energy, or the association with LELEAKUHONUA. This is really fascinating to me. So when I first started looking into LELEAKUHONUA, she's talked about as being associated with the plover bird who migrates from Hawaii to Alaska. So I assumed initially, and I was wrong. Here we go. It's one of the many times I'm sure I'll be wrong here. But what I assumed from what I could read, what I could find, because it's very little out there, I assumed that the name LELEAKUHONUA was referring to the bird itself. Like, I thought that maybe it was the name of the bird. It's not. So what the name actually is referring to is not the bird. The bird is a kolea bird. Kolea is the Hawaiian name for this golden plover. And on May 15th, I'll go more into learning about the actual bird because it's so cute and so amazing. And I'll say a little more about it in a second, but so cute. Yeah. And I live in California, on the coast of California, right near the beach, and we have actually snowy plovers here, and I love snowy plovers. So I'm very partial to these golden plovers too. Here they're endangered, and so on the beach I walk to right from my house, there's a whole a project by the local university to try to protect the habitat of our snowy plovers, and they're really adorable. Anyway, yeah, so the kolea bird is the Hawaiian name for the golden plovers. And the golden plovers have a migratory route where they also, similar to Sedna, this is so cool, so interesting. The kolea hatch and are then born in the Arctic of Alaska, just like Sedna. And actually some live also not only just in Alaska, but also over in across the Bering Strait in the certain part of China or Siberia. So it's not only Alaska, just to be clear, but largely it's on the coast of Alaska. And so that's where the bird is first the birds mate, and the female lays 4 eggs. Very specific, 4. That feels significant somehow, but anyway, just to name that, it's 4 eggs. And then the birds hatch there in Alaska, and then the parents leave Alaska first, and they leave their babies. I mean, the babies are old enough for them to leave, but when they do, so then the parents first, I think it's first the males and then the females, could be the other way around. Anyway, it's one gender leaves, and then the second gender leaves, and then a month or 2 later, then the babies leave, and they all fly for 3 days, non-stop, from Alaska to Hawaii. 3 days of flying nonstop. And these are little birds. They're like this big. They're tiny. And because there's no land for them to land on in between. It's ocean. It's the Pacific Ocean, and they can't swim. They're not swimmer birds. They fly and they walk, but they don't swim. So they can't, there's nowhere, they can't land and they can't swim. So anyway, they have this nonstop 3-day flight from Alaska to Hawaii. And when they get to Hawaii, it's also so cute. They apparently, in Hawaii, they're known for coming back to the exact same spot every year. And so apparently, again, if you live in Hawaii and you know this and know something more, tell us, what you know about this. But apparently they'll often go to the exact same, like somebody's lawn or the same golf course. I don't know. They come back to the exact same place. And even the babies, which have never been to Hawaii because they were born in Alaska, they find their way to the same spot, right? And it's just amazing. And so a lot of humans will have end up with a relationship with they call it, my kolea, because the bird returns every year to their house or whatever it is, and so they'll have names for these kolea. It's just like so adorable. And actually, the Hawaiian Audubon Society also has, similar to the snowy plover here in California, the Hawaiian Audubon Society has a campaign to help protect these birds. And yeah, so there's a lot of information about that also in that free course that you can sign up for if you want to learn more about that. Okay, so the bird itself is this kolea, but the name of the Oort cloud being is not kolea, right? Like you would think maybe we would name something after a noun. Like typically we name the planets, usually are named after gods and goddesses, and typically the gods and goddesses that the planets we know of in the main solar system, of course, are named after Greek and Roman gods and goddesses, mostly gods, Venus being the exception. But what we know has been happening a lot with the naming of the newly discovered beings, like in the Kuiper Belt and in the Oort cloud, like such as Sedna, is that a lot of them are being named after gods and goddesses of various indigenous traditions around the world, which is really, really beautiful and really cool. But this being, LELEAKUHONUA, is not, it's not a name of a goddess or a god. It's not even the name of the bird. And here, this is one example of, I would love, I'm trying to get in touch with, find somebody who is a native Hawaiian speaker, because I would really like for us to understand truly what the word means. And so I feel a little nervous to even attempt, because I'm obviously not native Hawaiian or at all in the slightest. From what I have found and what I seem to be gleaning is that lele seems pretty clear that lele means to fly. And then it's, I think, aku means away, and hanua means earth. Please, 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 if any of you speak Hawaiian, please correct me. But regardless, what the LELEAKUHONUA seems to be referring to, again, is not a thing, not a noun, not a god or a goddess, not even the bird itself. What it's referring to is almost beyond words. It's referring to the closest words I can think of, but it doesn't do it justice, is an attribute or a characteristic of the bird. So it's like, it's more like a quality. The name LELEAKUHONUA is referring to an energetic or a beingness of this bird. And so in a sense, it's a way of being. And I feel really hesitant to even define it or to translate it. First of all, I can't translate. I don't speak the language, right? So it feels, here's where it feels like it's so important as we're engaging with these, especially the newly named beings who have names that come from languages other than our own language, that we really, again, recognize that we're probably going to get it wrong. And we can't possibly know the right answer. And to approach this really slowly and carefully, and to try to listen on many, many levels. So in this case, for example, in this case, I'm reaching out to the actual center, the astronomy center in Hawaii, where this being was discovered, and where they're doing a lot of beautiful work to bring back the traditional Hawaiian astronomical knowledge and way of engaging with these beings and of naming these beings. But anyway, with all of that being my caveat, my sense is that this name, LELEAKUHONUA, is in a sense referring to the reality that this bird, the kolea bird, goes far away from home and then comes back, and then goes, flies far from the earth and then comes back. So we can, like, as I feel that, I can begin to feel into, okay, what is that bringing to our relationship with this being as we get to know it? And certain things do come in for me, certainly. But I feel like I'm at the very beginning, and I think probably all of us are at the very, very, very beginning to even, begin to have a sense of who this being is, which is what we're going to, again, dive more into on May 15th together. And then one more element I want to bring in this video that I think is really crucial, and that's related to that, is that, so it's complicated. It's hard to put this into words. Okay, which is kind of my point. So when we name something after a very concrete something or other, a noun, right? Whenever we name something after a god or a goddess, or even if we named it after a bird, it would be something that would be more somewhat tangible in a sense, something that we could really identify externally and have a kind of 3D-ish sense of what this thing is. Like, that's a tree, or that's a couch, you know? But when we are engaging with a being that's not named after a god or a goddess, it's not even named after the bird, it's named after a quality, a way of being, a characteristic, a behavior-ish. It's not really the right word, but it's a sense. It's, the name is really about a sense of a way of being. What starts to happen for me when I recognize that is that I start to drop into my body. I start to drop into my soul. I start to drop into this way of being and this way of knowing that is much more all of me, right? So if I'm thinking of traditionally, let's say we're learning about Venus. We know that Venus is named after the goddess Venus, or Aphrodite, who's a Greek and Roman goddess, depending on, Venus being Roman goddess, right? Aphrodite being the Greek version. And we could go and learn about this goddess, and we can kind of be with the associations we have with that planet, etc. And so there's an element of it that could stay pretty mental, could stay in my mind. The way I'm feeling called to engage with all of these beings, including Venus, isn't very mental, actually, but it could, if the name that's given to it is attributed to a goddess or a god or an object, it's easier for it to stay mental. But if if we've given a being a name that's not, in a sense, a thing, when it's more of an ethereal or a quality, it's a lot harder to stay mental about it. It's like, if I were trying to stay mental, I would struggle with, wait, what does that mean? How do I engage with that, right? It's really hard for my brain, just my cognitive linear brain, to wrap my head around it. So what I feel then, as I'm really feeling into what the name actually is referring to, I feel myself go from here, boom, straight down into my heart, my body, my soul, my mind also, but really all of who I am, all of me starts to much more automatically become engaged. And I mean, that's incredibly beautiful for so many reasons. But I think that maybe that's part of what is going on here. Maybe that's part of the opportunity with even engaging with this being and even the way it was named. So, and I'll say more about this on May 15th also, but I looked into the Astronomical Society where the being was discovered and was also named. And from what I understand, the students and the researchers who named this being, they're Hawaiian, Hawaiian students and researchers, this group, which I have a link to in the course, looks like it's doing incredibly beautiful work to bring back the indigenous Hawaiian ways of engaging with the cosmos and with life. And And something I think that has gotten lost in our more Western ways of doing science and of doing astronomy and of doing even astrology is this dropping down into our heart, into our soul, into our whole being, all of our ways of knowing that are so far beyond just the mind, but includes the mind. I mean, includes the mind is wonderful. The mind is great. Right. But to understand, what does this being, what is this being, this Oort cloud being really, really calling to us with, or what does it mean to engage with it? It's a lot harder to objectify it. I guess that's one way of putting it. Like, let's pretend we named it, I don't know, Queen of Sheba or something. It would just be a lot easier to think of it. Oh, that's the Queen of Sheba, and that has a quality of blah blah blah, and I'm gonna label it that, and I'm done. That's it. Like, that's my answer. But when I think you get my point, when we have a name that's about an energetic or a quality or a way of being, we have to really drop down and be with that. It's a lot easier to have simple answers. I mean, a lot harder to have simple answers. And last component here is that another really, really powerful and I think really crucial, important aspect of all of this is that, so LELEAKUHONUA is referring to this quality of the kolea plover bird, right? But the significance of the kolea bird, I mean, it's a bird that's native to Hawaii and Alaska, but it's also a bird that's named. One thing that is talked about in terms of this bird is that the kolea bird is named in the creation chant that is that's very, again, I'm not Hawaiian. I feel a little hesitant to even say this, given that I'm in the very, very beginning stages of understanding all of it. So please correct me if I'm wrong. Please jump in with information But the kolea bird is mentioned in a creation chant that was written by a member of the royal family of Hawaii. So for anybody who doesn't know, Hawaii was basically taken over by the US government against the will of the Hawaiian people or the Hawaiian royal family, etc. Again, I'm not an expert at all in Hawaiian history, but certainly there's colonization that has happened there, and it's very tragic in a lot of ways, right? And so this creation chant was actually translated by the Queen of Hawaii while she was in prison. She was imprisoned by the United States government, who was trying to basically take her land, which they did, right? And so while the Queen was in prison, she translated into English this creation chant, which was originally written by her ancestor. So I think maybe it was her grandfather who wrote it. Again, I have the details. I will tell you on May 15th. But anyway, it was one of her recent ancestors who had written it. And then she translated it into English. And I've also linked the English version that she translated for, if you're interested. I have the whole version is there in the course. So not only is this name of this Oort cloud being a quality of a bird, but the bird was named and was significant and special in this creation chant that was translated by the Queen of Hawaii while she was in prison, as the US government was basically taking her land from her and her people. So this brings in so many layers and so many, I don't even, again, it's just so far beyond words. What happens for me when I drop into all of this all of these layers, and I'm, again, only at the very beginning of doing this, it's like I feel us in this, we've just moved out of this time of forgetting. We're coming into this time of remembering. And what I really, really on the ultimate level feel like is I wonder if LELEAKUHONUA is helping us come home. Bottom line. I wonder, and on so many levels, right? I wonder if she is really a being who is calling to us, who's speaking to us, the Oort cloud, the being in the Oort cloud. I wonder if part of what she's doing as she's coming to her closest point to the sun and to the earth from, her 33,000+ year orbit, I wonder if what she's doing is really saying to us, come back home. Come back to remembering. Come back to this actual real way of being, which is all of who you are. Not just your mind. I mean, includes your mind, includes your heart, but includes all of who you are. And there's this layer, this level of us in this time of forgetting, of course, where we have colonized each other, we have colonized the earth, we've been colonized, we've been the colonizer. Most of our ancestors have been on both sides of that experience, and mine definitely have been on both sides. And now it's time to come back home. It's time to, we are in the time of remembering. And I think, that's my sense, I think this being, LELEAKUHONUA, I think is part of what's helping us to remember, to get it, to feel, to get it, not only in our mind, but in our being, who we actually are, who she actually is, who we all are. Yeah. Oh, and I didn't mention something really, really significant. I should have said this at the beginning. So she actually, I'm calling it a she, LELEAKUHONUA will be on the north node of the moon at 13 of Aries on June 8th, 2024. So feels very significant. And also I realized when I looked her up in my own chart, she's conjunct my sun natally. Fascinating. And yeah, so for most of us, when you're born, probably she was in Pisces, because again, she moves very slowly. So for me, she was in the mid degrees of Pisces when I was born. And yeah, chances are very high. She's now in Aries, but chances are very, very high she was in the sign of Pisces when you were born. But you could look it up. She's in Astrogold, and she's also, I'll talk about this more on May 15th. Also, she's in the constellation of kind of Pisces / Pegasus. So Pegasus fits in between the fish of Pisces. And so from what I can figure out, I think she's actually in the constellation of Pegasus right now, but in between the fish of Pisces. So that's she's in the seasonal sign of Aries, but in the constellation of Pegasus in between the fish of Pisces with the North Node. And actually also with the Kuiper Belt object, Celestia, and opposite the Kuiper Belt object, Makemake. So I'll say more about all of that coming up on May 15th and beyond, I'm sure. Yeah, beautiful. Okay, so then I'll tell you a little more about what we're going to do on May 15th. And again, please sign up if you can be there live or not. You have the recording there already. It's basically like a free course already. So there's so much in there, and I'm putting my slideshow, my presentation slides PDF in there for you to have. It's all just a gift, and please invite anybody and everybody who you think might enjoy being there or being part of it. So what we're going to do on May 15th is it's going to be a sacred time. It's going to be, I'm going to open it as to come into sacred space together. And I'm being guided to hold it as a sacred time of co-remembering. So I will start out by, again, holding the sacred space, and then I will do a slideshow presentation. I'll tell you the data that I've gleaned, and between now and then, I'm sure I'll find more. I'm trying to reach, again, people at the Astronomy Center, and I'm trying to understand more about the actual meaning of the name and all of that. I would love to find a native Hawaiian speaker who I could speak to about that. So I'm trying to do that. And please feel free to send me any information you have, or questions you have, or thoughts you have. Put it in the course. That would be awesome. I would love, love, love that. So we'll start out. I will give you a presentation, actual presentation of what I know. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take a little pause, and then we'll come into a channeled journey together of going and basically being with this being in the Oort cloud who is coming to its closest point to us and to the sun. And we will each in our own ways be held by the spirit world, joined by the spirit world, and joined by, I assume, this being to honor her. I don't know why I keep saying her. Anyway, to honor the being, to honor ourselves, and to listen deeply, each of us individually, and then together, who is this being? What arises in our whole way of knowing? I think that there's so much beyond what we can capture in our minds that is needing and wanting to come alive. And so basically this is a space where I hopefully will hold a safe place for us all to drop in and feel with the whole being that is each of us. What's alive? Who is this being? What are they needing to say to us? What do they need from us? Or what gifts? I mean, whatever. What's alive? And then we'll have some time for sharing what's alive for you. And if you want to share, that's obviously completely optional. All of this is optional. But I'm also hoping that the free course, will be a place for an ongoing conversation about this, and an ongoing discovery and exploration and honoring of each other and of the being, of who it is. What is this? What's going on in this time of remembering that is maybe coming alive in our relationship with this being, and with the cosmos in general, with life in general, with the earth even. Yeah. And so just the very last component on that, I think it's implied, but something that's really crucial to me in the way that I am being guided to approach astrology and all of my work and my relationship with all of you, is that it feels really important that we both absolutely honor astrologers, etc., who have incredible knowledge. I mean, I can't even pretend to, have the unbelievable wisdom of certain astrologers who I highly respect, highly, highly, highly respect, and who have much more experience than I do. in astrology, etc. So I'm not denying that in the slightest. That absolutely has its place. And I, for example, like Melanie Reinhart, Heather Answorth, thank you, Pam Gregory, I can't, I would never, ever, ever dishonor how much I love and appreciate certain beings, people like that, and others, many others. And I think as we are getting to know these beings, especially the ones, all of them, everything, but especially these ones that are just barely, barely, barely being known by the Western astronomical world and astrological world, it feels really crucial that we switch. We've been in had a tendency, probably our whole lives, speaking for myself, to look outside of us for the expert. Or if we are an astrologer, like let's say, again, I could have made this video the opposite way. I could have felt like I need to, go and research and spend years and not really talk about this until I am an expert and I can really for sure say that I think I know that I'm right about blah, 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 blah. And I know more than other people do, and all of that. So again, that has its place, that totally has its place. But I think that part of what's being called for in this time is that this knowing is there in all of us. So I feels really important that we come back to the reality that we each are wisdom keepers. We all are wisdom keepers. And this remembering is meant to come through every single one of us. Not only through the expert guru type beings, which again have incredible gifts that they give, and it's wonderful, wonderful. But it's also meant to come through every single one of us in a unique way. And the amazing teachers who I like, the ones I named, who I particularly respect and love, I think would agree. I can't speak for them, but I think the best teachers I've known are ones who really turn it back to the student in a sense, right? And who in a sense say, yeah, I have certain knowledge, and yet the knowledge also is in you. So please come back to you, your own knowing, your own power. And that's certainly true for me, that's my value set very strongly. Yeah, so that's the point of May 15th, is that yes, I will absolutely give you a slideshow presentation. I absolutely will tell you what I have gleaned or found, or the information I at least think I know. But then the real point is to hold a space for us all to remember, to presence with this being, with each other, with life, with the cosmos itself, with the earth, with the time of remembering that we're in. Period. We're done with the time of forgetting. And this feels like a crucial stepping into this time of remembering that we're now in. And so related to the soul song, the whole soul song theme that, those of you who have been watching my recent videos, it's been a very prevalent theme in case anybody never noticed. Definitely probably the number one theme right now for me. So this obviously goes right along with that. All right. I think that's enough for now. And there's so much more. Super, super excited to see you on May 15th, 2024. Again, please sign up, even if you can't be there live, even if you're hearing this video after May 15th, the recording will be available indefinitely. All the resources are there indefinitely. Please send anybody and everybody to the course who you think might benefit from it, enjoy it. Again, totally free, and really meant to, my goal is that this will help us
get to know this being, but even beyond that, my really ultimate goal is that I'm feeling called to hold a space for us to come into this way of being with each other, with life, and to be the remembering with this way, this being one of the ways of doing that. All right. Thank you each so much. Super excited to be with you soon, and see you soon.